on this computer. Okay, we are recording. You were up, Jodie.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Ignite Your Life event. And this evening, we're talking about time management. And the title is kind of clever because it's this: is time managing you, or are you managing time? So it makes you kind of think, doesn't it? Now, a metaphor that I was wanting to use tonight was, do you feel like you have a variety of what I call spinning plates? And the different plates are all these different things that we're doing in our life, whether it's career, our personal life, things like that. But it just feels like we start out with maybe 6 or 7, got that going pretty good. And then what happens? So Leanne, I'm curious, what happens with your spinning plates?
Well, gee, as I'm trying to keep all this, the plates rotating, I feel as though shifting priorities as I go through life, especially I'm kind of in a little place of transition, as you're aware of. And so as my priorities are shifting, and I've had to and really wanted to give more of my time, because really time management is really all about those priorities to which you're going to give your time. A plate, I might have let the family plate start to wobble over while keeping that work plate going. Now I really look at, okay, what have I placed on those spindles and what can fall, and it's going to be okay because these other priorities really have greater values. So that's kind of what, if something's starting to wobble, chances are these days it's because it's providence and I've needed to give my time more to something else.
Well, I think that's what's really important, is to just recognize and understand, recognize and be aware of how many plates are really going on at the same time.
Right.
And, as you said, it's about, prioritizing. Now, what I want to do is turn it over to Lisa, because she actually, she has a great idea, a strategy, and some other things that she's going to share. So
Wonderful.
Well, thank you, Jodie. All right. So what I want to talk about is getting organized. And, we may have things on our phone, and we may have things on like a written calendar. So it might be in multiple areas,
right.
It's not really gelling. So really the purpose is to really get everything together and get a quick visual so you can really see the blocks of time that you have available. And if you notice that there is no time available, then it's time to recognize what are the time suckers that are monopolizing the time. So the first thing is to create a task list and organize it by priority. So organizing it in high, medium, and priority tasks.
Right.
And I have a template which I want to put in here. I'm going to do this real quick so it will help. Let's see. I had it set and ready to go, and that was my problem. But basically it is prioritizing everything that you have and putting it into, priority, kind of mid-range, and then not so popular. So Leanne, what would be some priority tasks for you?
So for me, as I'm balancing different projects, I'm looking at the level of urgency. I'm looking at deadlines, obviously, as well as how dense
Mhm.
one project happens to be as compared to another. If I'm working with other stakeholders, I kind of weigh that in, because then that tends to create intermediate and interdependent tasks. So those are some of the things that I look at as I'm setting priorities, because whereas something may have a deadline that's really far out, there are all of these intermediates that are going to stand in the way, or not stand in the way, that have to be taken into consideration. So that's kind of how I prioritize work-wise. And then for family, I take a look, pretty much the same thing. I'm pretty consistent actually on both sides. If it's, an event, like I'm having an event at my home on Saturday, and I've been planning this event for the last 3 months, knowing that I'm going to have other projects, other things come up. I'm dealing with grief right now, so sometimes that just shuts me down when I'm not expecting it. And so I really try to think of every possible thing that needs to be taken into consideration as I'm building out my task list, because I do the same thing that you described in my planner. I have it all lined out with all of the intermediates I need to think of, because the intermediates are the things that will really get me if I don't take those into consideration and into account as I'm prioritizing all of my responsibilities.
Okay, and that's great that you recognize that. Then it's better to manage because you know that. So I put in
Absolutely.
the chat, and if it may be something that you'd be interested in. It's just a different form of spreadsheet where you can prioritize it into the the high, medium, and not so. Now, one thing to make sure that you're prioritizing is your self-care. And oftentimes when we get really busy, that goes by the wayside. And self-care is so important. So even if you don't have a big block of time to say, oh, I'm going to go to a spa, or I'm going to get my nails done, or whatever it is, you can do like little blocks of time here and there just to check out, maybe just take a walk outside, or do a meditation, or grounding exercise, or whatever it is. But just make sure that you're taking care of you and schedule it, because oftentimes we don't schedule it and we schedule everything else. And then it's like, well, if we have time left, we'll just kind of stick it in the nooks and crannies, and that never works.
It never works out.
It always goes by the wayside. So, so then in the open blocks of time, you're going to schedule. So once you get everything, scheduled out, and if you have, I can put one in here in the chat, but like a month at a glance, that has all the different blocks in it. So you have like a one visual, when you look at it, and then it's very easy to identify where the blocks of time are. Now, if there are no blocks of time, then what you need to do is get a separate piece of paper and jot down all the things that take up your time in a given day. So, starting from the morning. Okay, so how long does it take you to get ready for work? Is there a commute involved, or do you just walk into your office? If you have kids, do you have to take them to school? What is that? Schedule your time for lunch or for a break. Put in all of those different things, and then how much time you spend on email, social media, and then in the evening, your TV, things like that, because it will become very apparent where the time suckers are. And oftentimes when people say that they have no time, it's because they're spending 4 hours a day, and they're like, I'm not spending 4 hours a day, but they're spending like 4 hours a day on social media and email. And they're not recognizing that because it's just like haphazardly throughout, certain periods of time. But when they really take the time to identify it, they're like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So that can really be trimmed down, to like a half hour here, an hour at the most, whatever it is. So that's very important. Let's see. And then the last thing is, the last two things are, establishing boundaries. I know for me, this was something that was a challenge for a long time. And it was funny, before you popped on, I was just telling Jodie that, I basically had a conversation with myself saying, okay, I've got a lot of plates in the air, and there are things that are all important. And there are things that I need to let go of that maybe I didn't really want to let go of, but I have to let go of because it's preventing me from really focusing on what I need to focus on. So in my case, that is actually a networking meeting that I'm going to have to let go of, which, I've been going for like 7 years, but I have to do that. So it's okay, but really establishing those boundaries. And, if it's somebody calls you and says, oh, let's meet for a drink, or let's, I don't know, whatever it is, those things that pop up at the last minute. If you are strapped for time and you're not spending enough time either with your family or in self-care, and you're feeling obligated to do something, you shouldn't be doing it.
Absolutely. Boy, that is such a great point.
And the other thing too, sometimes when we give up something, that doesn't mean we can't go back to it at another time.
Excellent point, Jodie. That's so true.
Yeah, because I was thinking about your networking, because you said 7 years, and there isn't a little bit, I'm making up a story, but there might be a little emotional attachment to that because you have great friends and things, but that doesn't mean that, maybe a year from now or whatever the case, maybe you could go back. Right. It's just for right now, it's not working in your life.
Exactly.
So that might make you feel a little better.
Yeah. I had somebody share with me a while ago, which really put things in perspective. It's like when you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else.
Yeah.
So what are you saying no to? Something that you technically should be saying yes to, but you're saying no because you don't have the time, because you've said yes to things that really you should not have. So again, when you say yes to something, it means you say no to something else. So really determine what you're saying yes to. And then lastly, be kind to yourself. We all get stressed, we all get overwhelmed, and sometimes we overcommit. It's reality, whatever. But just give yourself some grace. It's okay. It's okay. And beating yourself up and starting to go down that self-deprecating rabbit hole of, oh my gosh, I have to do all these things perfectly, and if I don't do them well, oh my gosh, the world's going to fall apart. You know what?
Right. Exactly.
You will be fine, and the world will be fine. So, give yourself some slack. And if when you're setting the boundaries to somebody, be honest with them. Just say, you know what, I've really overcommitted myself. And as much as I would love to spend time with you, I really need this time for my family, or I really need this time for myself. How would you feel, Leanne, if somebody said that to you?
I would feel so much respect for that individual for trusting me with that information and being vulnerable and just telling me the truth. That is something that I had to do even recently because of just my emotional state. I am not capable of as many things as I normally would be. And so I had to go to a couple of my commitments and say, I know that you're accustomed to me being Superwoman, and I am, but I don't have the capacity right now. And I've got to scale things back and give myself a chance to just heal and decompress and be with my family. And that was hard. That was so hard because I'm a pleaser, because I'm a workaholic, because of all these things. But I needed to give myself that space And that's one of the few times I've ever done that in life, really and truly. And I'm so glad that I did. And having my evening time, recapturing that time to give to my family, to spend time to sit outside and do nothing. That's what I wish to do. It still makes me uncomfortable to sit and do nothing because I always have 1,000 things going on. But you're so right. I think I had just this pattern of overcommitting because I have always found fulfillment in that sense, all tied into that sense of self-worth, right? Of having all these things going on, then boy, you're really producing, and that underscores your value. And as I'm getting older and through my coaching sessions with Jodie, I'm coming to recognize that those things do not define me. In fact,
No, they're just lies we tell ourselves.
yes, yes.
So, yep.
Leanne, you could take your cape and take it to the dry cleaners for a month.
Truly, the cape is at the cleaners.
Sorry, I can't fly over there today.
Exactly. Gosh, that's so important. This has been a year of needing to give myself grace. And when I included grace in my vision board language, I didn't realize that was the grace I was going to have to extend myself this year, because you just never know. Life throws you some interesting curveballs. So thank you for saying that. That's such an important piece to this.
Good for you for recognizing that. So with that, I'm going to put a couple other things in the chat, but I'm going to turn it over to Jodie to continue with the next part of the presentation. So Miss Jodie.
Okay, so what I wanted to talk about are some of the reasons why we may struggle with managing our time. And the areas I want to talk about one is mindset. And mindset really has a lot to do with what you see, what you hear, and what you're saying to yourself. But it is what do you say to yourself about a particular task? And it's also there's clarity is not defined. So that can get in the way of your mindset. Lisa talked a lot about boundaries and being able to say no. And it's okay, because no is a sentence, you know. And then there's behaviors.
That's a good one.
Yeah, no is a complete sentence. But what's interesting also is around behaviors, and behaviors are things like it's almost like it's a lack of something, but what that behavior does is it actually keeps you safe. So the behavior is rooted from the belief structure, and the belief structure is what keeps you. The job of the belief structure, the root, is to keep you safe. And so, what do you think might be one of the leading behaviors that can actually occur around managing time or time management?
Procrastination.
Yay! You just won the prize.
That's an old friend.
Yes. So now what's interesting about procrastination is the root cause of procrastination is based on fear. Now, it could be fear of uncertainty, like the unknown, uncertainty. Well, fear of rejection, fear of being uncomfortable when you have to deal with a conflict. Like when we talk about saying no to, setting a boundary with a person, it can feel very uncomfortable to do that at first, right? Because, for a whole host of reasons, but that can stop people from doing it because they don't want to, go down that lane. But that's the uncomfortable thing. Also, fear of change. Like, I know this, my unconscious knows this, and now I'm going to change and go in a different direction, and it's so unknown. And there's a fear of that change because, well, am I really going to be able to handle this change, which also leads to anxiety. Now, anxiety is rooted from fast moving pictures in color with awfulization added to it. So the awfulization of the things you're saying, but it's like a movie that's going really, really fast, but it's in color. And so how you got to be able to stop that movie. Okay. And there's different techniques of doing that, but that's really basically what anxiety is. So anyway, those are the three aspects of what causes procrastination to show up. So it's mindset, behaviors, beliefs, and boundaries. So what I wanted to do was, there's an exercise, in Leanne and Lisa, both of you are aware of NLP. I work with Leanne a lot with NLP, but there's a really interesting but simple little technique around procrastination. So if you would, do you each have a pen and a little piece of paper right in front of you? Okay. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to draw a square, like a box, okay? And then right parallel to that, but going, to the right a little bit, draw another box. So it's just two boxes.
Okay.
Okay. Now, make sure I say this right. So the first box, just for demonstration purposes, how often do we say in procrastination, well, I will do this tomorrow or next week? That's a form of procrastination. Like, something needs to be done. You're not really wanting to do it. So you say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. How often do we say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow? Okay. So what I want you to do is just write on top of that box, I will do it tomorrow, on the first box to the left. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put procrastination into the future. So what you're going to do is over there to the right, the other empty box, just put procrastination there. Now, draw a bigger box right underneath the procrastination, right underneath the first box. Just draw like a little bit bigger box. And now what we're going to do, because see, we just decided that we're putting the concept of procrastination into the future. So it's in the future. So now what we get to do is replace this business of I will do it tomorrow to an action step that you can do right now. So think of a goal that you want to do right now and then do that goal, like do that step now. So what you're doing is you're placing that box, so just, you have to imagine this, on top of the I will do it tomorrow box with that new action step that you're going to do.
So I have a question. Is that action step associated with what you're procrastinating? Like maybe it's one small component of it, or is it something independent of that? Okay.
Yes, something that's relating to that. Now here's why this works. It's fascinating, but it's how the brain is wired. is that it says, oh, okay, I know I'm not going to procrastinate right now. I'm doing that in the future. But so what I'm going to do instead of is this new task. And every time you want to procrastinate, you just say, okay, I'm putting you out into the future. And now I'm going to, instead, I'm going to do this new act, you know, what I really want to do. Can you see that?
No. So instead of saying I will do this tomorrow,
You're replacing, see, the I will do it tomorrow is a procrastination idea.
Right.
Like, okay. So what you're doing is you're taking that piece and you're going ahead and moving it into the future box. In other words, procrastination is now in the future box, and you're replacing the present time into an action that you want to do. In other words, when you put it out into the future, it doesn't mean that you're going to procrastinate in the future. You're just sticking it out there somewhere instead of it, you living in it right now.
but if you were going to say that you were going to do it into the future anyway, how is that different than procrastinating? I think that's what I'm having difficulty understanding.
Okay, I get it. Would you repeat that one more time, just so I...
So it's the act of saying, well, I will do this tomorrow. So are you saying instead of procrastinating and putting it off until tomorrow, you're saying I'm setting this as a goal for tomorrow, but I'm going to do one piece now?
Okay.
I don't know. I still am.
Okay. Yeah, I
can't
understand.
wrap my mind around.
It's a little interesting, but okay. So what happens is you're replacing procrastination. See, remember that box I had you make that's right underneath?
Right.
You're imagining putting that box on top of covering, you know, so that the I will do it tomorrow is deleted.
Okay.
And then you're actually creating what you really want to do. The act of procrastination, you're just telling the unconscious, just go into the future, place it there for now. But it never shows itself in the future because you're not actually going into the future with procrastination because you're always staying active. So basically, you know, when we do the video or the visual swish process, Leanne, when I've done that with you, where, you know, you have a still picture in the right corner of your ceiling of you not doing something. And then over here, you created the movie of you.
Yes.
Doing, and then we place that on top of the still black and white picture and delete it and then expand the movie of you doing it. It's the same kind of concept.
Oh, okay.
That's what it's supposed to do.
Okay.
So I have to admit, I'm trying this out in this context because normally when I see people, I do another little thing to go with it. But anyway, it is a technique that does work because the point is you don't want to live in the mindset of I am procrastinating right now. You want to put it somewhere else. And then so that's why you replace the new behavior on top, delete it, and then procrastination is somewhere out in the future, but it really isn't.
So
I know it seems that.
And so here's my follow-up question, because I want to also be able to provide this as a tool to my two daughters who are college students who procrastinate on some of their tasks, especially their homework. And it's the fear of uncertainty with one of them is it is paralyzing sometimes for her. And so I want to find a way to package this and give her this information. So by replacing the procrastination with what you're going to do today, how does that, like if she let's say procrastinated for a couple of weeks on one of her classes because she's intimidated by the content, let's say, by saying, okay, I'm pushing this into the future, so now I'm no longer behind. How does that It doesn't change some of the realities though, if she
No, I would
is in
have to,
fact behind.
there's other, actually, there's other processes I would need to do
Okay,
first. So that because there's a story there that's been created, and I would need
yes, that's true.
story first. This is just was supposed to be a simple little idea where instead of living in the procrastination, you're putting it out there and then replacing it. That's all you're replacing it with more of an action. It's kind of like, what would life look like if you created this change versus staying in the procrastination? But it's interesting because unconsciously, your unconscious mind can actually imagine putting procrastination out into the future, but doesn't mean you're going to procrastinate right now. It's got to go somewhere, you know?
Right.
So, but you want to replace the habit of I'm not doing it right now to something that you really do want to do.
Absolutely.
So
Okay.
I mean, it was going to be a little interesting kind of idea, but that's that. And then the other, I don't know how we are on time. Okay, so the other point that I was going to do too is, doing just a simple anchoring technique, where we can anchor a time when you knew, like 2 or 3 times when you knew that you were very focused, driven, purposeful, motivated, a time like that. And we'll anchor a couple of those. And then all you have to do is access the anchor so that you can easily move, because you're going into a recall and you're going to remember that you've done this before and how it feels to do that. And that allows the unconscious to move forward because it's accessing all the senses.
Right.
So why don't we do that? What do you think? It will only take a minute.
That sounds great.
So anyway, all right. So with this last little exercise that we did do, okay, so think of something that you have been procrastinating on.
Okay.
Okay, so now you just got that. Okay, that you know what that is. Okay, but what I want you to do is, for tonight's purposes, just go ahead and between, this web right here of your finger, or between these 2 fingers, you're going to press on that. Okay, so that's going to be your anchor spot. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes and take a deep breath in and out first. And I want you to now access a memory or a time when you knew not only were you focused, but you got things accomplished. You felt, really empowered, excited, motivated. So think of something that you've done. You did it in a timely manner, but you were excited and motivated to do this task. Now, I want you to just press with your 2 fingers on that web. Recall this memory, and I want you to see what you saw at that time. Hear also what you were hearing at that time. Feel how you felt when you were excited and motivated and focused and driven and you got it done, because you feel it somewhere in the body. And just notice how you were moving while you were doing that activity or that task. When you're done, you can open your eyes. Okay. So I think we ought to do one more memory, just one more memory, but we're going to stack the anchor. So you're just going to do the same thing,
Okay.
the same location, but I want you to come up with another memory where you knew you were motivated, excited, you were focused, you got the task done, you did it in a timely manner, you know, all's good there. So think of just, it could be anything. It could be something to do with maybe an exercise routine you're doing, or a task you do for work, but something that does motivate and excite you. And when you have that, nod. Now press down, and I want you to recall that memory. And I want you to see what you saw at that particular time. Hear what you heard. Access the feeling of what that felt like, especially when you knew you accomplished it. And notice how you were moving. Okay. Now, just say out loud anything, like what's your favorite color?
Purple.
Lisa, what's your favorite color?
Sorry. Orange.
Okay, all right, good. All right, so now what I want you to do is just press on your anchor and just say recall, and tell me if you can recall those two memories. Okay. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to take those memories that, especially, you'll see what I'm going to do, and I want you to place it in the thing that you are not doing right now, the thing that you're procrastinating on. Okay. Now, close your eyes, press on your anchor, and now add those resources that you've experienced. See what you see, bringing what you saw into this new task. Hear what you heard. What are you going to say to yourself? Like you said before in your other two memories. Add that audio into this. Access the feeling of knowing of those two anchors, but placing that in this task now. Feel that. Place those feelings. And now notice how you're moving now with these resources that are now available to you for this task. Okay, so I want you to see what you see, hear what you hear, feel what you feel, and notice how you're moving. Okay, now tell me from a scale of 1 to 5, 5 meaning now that you will get right to this task. 5 is yes, and 1 is no, maybe not. Where are you?
I'm at a 4.
Okay. How about you, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm pretty close. Yeah, I would say purple.
Okay. So here's my question to you. What else do you need in order for it to be a 5? Is it more audio? Is it more feeling? Is it another memory that you need to access? What is it that would allow it to be a 5?
My current time commitments will make it a challenge. I feel more motivated, but my current time commitments are as such that it would be a challenge, but I don't, that kind of little undercurrent of intrepidation has been alleviated some, but I have these other time commitments as well.
So let me ask you this. Is there something that you can do around your time commitments? Like, is there a way that you can, I know you always want to do a great job and things like that. So I'm not saying not to do a good job, but is there something that you can, maybe pay attention to the habits you're doing around your task, and maybe there's a way to shortcut something so that you have more time to, you know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Like when Lisa talked about boundaries earlier, maybe there is something there that you could delegate or say no to.
That's very true. I mean, you know me, I can make great the enemy of good quite frequently.
Well, okay, so let's say that you did you were able to, let go of some things so that you did have more time. All right, so let's imagine that's part of your objective here is to, our goal is to, see how you can let go of a few
Shift that.
things and,
Shift that. Okay.
yeah, just, and then that way you would have more time. And then if you had more time, how would you feel about the thing that you've been procrastinating on?
Oh, that solves it. A little adjustment that I needed to make.
Okay.
Amazing.
So,
Great.
so that's basically another way that we just handled doing the box idea. Okay. So
Yes.
yeah, that's basically, I just, I thought, well, I'll try the box thing. Okay. All right. I'm just going to do this instead. So that's exactly what the box thing's about. Now, Lisa, what needs to be in place for you to have a almost there, but like a 5, because you said you were almost there.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's time. I need to really just, time block and just make sure that
Sure.
I schedule it. I just have to schedule it and just do it.
Yeah.
What needs to happen.
Okay. So that's the,
That's a great point, Lisa. I'm going to put it on my calendar right now. Set it in stone.
Yeah. Schedule it.
Schedule it.
Absolutely. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist.
I know. Same with me. Like schedule it. Yep. In fact, I'm going to do that myself.
And just look at the, when I asked the question, well, what would life look like if you created this change? How more fulfilling will your life be? And not only that, but sustainable, because we only have so much bandwidth. So
Right.
You just increase your bandwidth. You got to like pour water back into the jar sort of thing, So this is just a simple, but helpful technique. So that was what I wanted to share. I mean, I could share other things, but we're almost done now for that evening. But
that was great.
But I thought, thank you for letting me try out the box thing. Now I know what I need to do differently. But
Absolutely. Yeah, it took a second because it's nearly 7 p.m. So my brain, it took a moment to get it in there. So thank you for your patience.
Well, what's interesting when I do this, I actually I might be in front of a group and I'm on a whiteboard and I'm doing different whiteboard. And that's kind of I think what's missing here is my whiteboard.
Oh, sure.
Anyway, I'm not saying that it didn't work, and so whoever listens to this, it's definitely a tool that you can use. But anyway, so doing what we did later is helpful too, to pull it all together, because I like to put a bow on top of things. I don't like my boxes not working. Make sure that, but that's what I wanted to share. So is there anything you'd like to ask, or anything you want to say, Leanne, before Lisa?
No, these have just been, gosh, such great reminders. And I'm so glad that I was able to and it's every little subtle shift can be so significant. And I just needed this extra little push.
Yeah. I'm glad you could come.
Of guidance. So that's my comment. Very, very helpful as always, and directly applicable. I love it when there's a tool that I can put into practice immediately, because I'm more likely to use it more frequently if I can.
Well, I'm looking forward to using that weekly schedule planner thing too, because I think, when you have something like that, it's like she says, like Lisa said, it's a visual. You got to see what your week's going to look like,
Oh, yeah, I couldn't survive without it.
I put 3 in the chat box. I did the priority one where you rank it, and then there's the actual time block, and then there's actually 4. There's 2 different types of blank weekly planners, depending upon which works best for you. And then the last thing I put in there was a webinar feedback form. So Leanne, if you could just, when you have time, it'll only take you a couple minutes. We would greatly appreciate your feedback.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially in reference to topics that you would find beneficial in the future. This is going to be our last topic for this year. Now that we're basically in November, which is crazy to me.
No.
But the next 2 months are just going to be a blur. So, and Jodie and I are working on some other cool things.
Yes, we are.
Awesome.
And you're going to love it, and you're going to want to be in all of it. I promise you, I know that. And same with Mary Lou and some others that weren't here this evening that couldn't make it. But yes.
Awesome. Well, I will look
Yes,
forward to
that's
that.
an
That's
idea.
wonderful. And I'm glad that you're taking the next 2 months off to just sort of be present in the holiday season and family time. That's wonderful.
It's vision board season. I already did 3.
Oh, that's true. It is indeed.
Oh my gosh, yes, but here we go. So anyway, yeah, I need time for that. Like Lisa's got a lot going on too. She's doing a lot.
I'm sure. Gosh.
So
Exciting though. Very good. So, well, thank you, Leanne, so very much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
You're
And
quite welcome. Thank you for all of your insights to the both of you. I always walk away with a little pearl that I can apply. So I'm very grateful for that.
well, awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, you have a great evening. And I'm going to stop the recording right now.